Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Cabinet of Gloucester City Council. This meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. The recording of the meeting will remain online for 4 years, and if you are present in the chamber and you are consenting to appearing in the recording and broadcast, which may also be used for training purposes. Item 1 is apologies. I don't think I've got any. Declarations of interest? No. Minutes of the meeting held on the 11th December. Are you happy to accept them as a true and accurate record? Yep. Okay. I'll sign them. Item 4, public questions. We've got no notice of any public questions, so we'll move on. Petitions and deputations. We haven't got any of those as far as I'm aware. And then we've got item 6, leader and cabinet member question time for elected members of Gloucester City Council. Can I remind those that are going to be asking questions that the time period for this session is 15 minutes. Also, so if you can keep your questions concise and the same to cabinet members responding, therefore, if we do that, we will get through them all. But otherwise, we might have to cut them short, and I wouldn't want to do that. First question is from Councillor Alistair Chambers.
Thank you, Chair. So my question was around, does the City Council consistently act within full compliance with UK law? And thank you for the response that states the Council always seeks to act in a lawful manner. However, I don't believe seeking is a defence in law. With regards to my question, I conducted a Freedom of Information, which I've got a copy for you here if you'd like to see it, with regards to highways and licences that have to be made by an authority to have anything attached to a lamppost or across a highway. The reason for that is to make sure it's the right height for vehicles to pass underneath, structurally, integrally, securely fixed, mechanically.
You're talking about the highways.
Highways, yeah. Look, just bear with me. Just bear with me, Chair. You're wasting precious time. Bear with me, Chair. You're wasting precious time. So my point is legally, this authority has to obtain a licence to put up Christmas decorations and attach things to lampposts. Freedom of Information shows that there is no such licence for this authority, and therefore it's breaking the law under the Highways Act 1980, Section 178. Section 178 of the Highways Act states that the council has a legal authority, and they have to, if they erect lights, banners or decorations over a highway or attach any item to a lamppost, they must obtain a licence from the relevant highway authority. You haven't got one. So on that basis, you're breaking Section 178 of the Highways Act. It says failure to obtain a licence or comply with conditions constitute to an offence and will result in penalties and removal of the items. So, Leader, we like our Christmas lights, we like celebrating Christmas, and we like the attractions to the city. Will the City Council therefore stop seeking to comply with the law and actually comply with the law and obtain a current and correct licence for legal activities and make sure pedestrians and residents are safe in our city? Will you therefore instruct an independent person to oversee the mismanagement and legal conductivity of this council going forward to protect public health and safety? Thank you.
Well, this is the first I've heard of this accusation, and I'm surprised if you think the council's breaking the law that you haven't put this matter in writing to the monitoring officer. I'll ask the monitoring officer to consider your comments and to report back. But as far as I'm aware, the Christmas lights that we put up in the gate streets are safe and they do the job and they cheer everybody else up. And if you're trying to get pedantic about something like that, and certainly the county council hasn't come to us and says you can't do it. So we'll investigate it. But it would have been more polite, frankly, to have put this information in writing beforehand, rather than make a speculative challenge and claim against the council that it's not complying with the law. Question 2.
Thank you for raising that. And obviously going forward, I would like to say that I will follow your advice and contact the council. However, question 2 shows that I've repeatedly, I'll read it out for just regaining where I am. I've repeatedly raised health and safety concerns with the city council's assets to the city council, which, as you know, led to the closure of the car park in 2023, where we were offered a site and the public were offered site of structural reports. Rolling on nearly 2 years later, after frequent requests to the monitoring officer, which you said I should contact, senior officers, which I won't mention any names, I've been asking for these, and as it says in there, you've reprimanded me, saying I shouldn't have made reference to the leaders' meeting. But as I've said today to you, Leader, I'm raising valid health and safety concerns about bird netting that's non-compliant, it's not been maintained, and it's holding in significant weight of construction delaminated concrete. So my question to you again is, will you please take seriously my health and safety concerns, stop ignoring me? I've asked you several times, and issue these reports that we've been promised in full council unanimously, including every Liberal Democrat that asked for these reports. They still haven't been issued. Weekly, I'm told I'm going to be issued them. I've got email evidence to prove the case. When is this council actually going to deliver on its promises to ensure that the public is safe, and what are they hiding by not delivering this literature? And please ensure that the bird netting, which is holding the concrete up, is immediately looked at. I did review it with the Deputy Director, Leader, and I did show firsthand my concerns, and it's still there. Thank you.
You will note from the item 8 on the agenda the additional expenditure that this council has incurred to inspect buildings that you reported incidents to, and also carry out repairs. The officer's advice at the moment is those repairs have been done. If you have new evidence about issues related to that, you should make a specific one rather than a generalised complaint. May I point out to you that £293,000 has been spent on carrying out the safety inspections. This is additional expenditure on looking at the buildings and look at the issues that you raised, and a number of repairs have been carried out because of that. Item 3.
Item 3. Thank you again for advising that the council seeks to act lawfully with regards to the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. However, I'd like to draw your attention to the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981 with regards to Section 5 of the Act. Poorly maintained and incorrectly installed netting that leads to bird injury or death could fall under this category. Council responsibilities under this legislation of the Wildlife and Countryside Act. Councils using bird netting must ensure that the netting is properly installed and maintained to avoid trapping birds. Any trapped birds are rescued promptly and unharmed. Netting is inspected regularly to prevent it from becoming a hazard. Failing to do so could result in legal action under the Act, including fines and reputational damage. That said, I've already explained to you that I've been chasing for the last, 2 years, the bird netting, which hasn't been maintained, hasn't been managed, hasn't been looked at, because it's full of concrete. Furthermore, I reported to Here to Help a bird that was trapped at Eastgate Street in the netting, and since then the bird's died. You, as a council, this year have failed to protect birds in this city under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. As a direct result, will you instruct an independent person, potentially a barrister, to review the failings of the City Council, ensure going forward that rare birds and species will be given the respect they deserve when in our city? Thank you, Chair.
We do everything to protect wildlife in Gloucester, but of course you can't provide 100% protection. If you have evidence of problems, then put it in writing and give us the detail, rather than making an accusation that the council's failed to deal with something. I'm unaware of the bird netting that you're talking about that's caused the problem, and whether it has caused that problem. Once again, you're exaggerating problems and making to grandstand, no doubt, to get your name in the paper. Item 4.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the netting, I've even brought the leader of the council to the netting, so I can't do any more than that, than actually physically walks at me and say, look, how bad that is. But anyway, moving on to number 4. It's great to hear that the forum development is projected to be completed on time and on budget. That's absolutely fantastic. At the original cost of 107 million. So well done, fantastic, Gloucester City Council. However, the problem is the Gloucester City Council practically took 6.3 million from...
Sorry.
Slip of the tongue, I apologise, Chair. Diverted, let's call it diverted. The City Council diverted from a historical listed Grade 1 building 6.3 million to the forum. Why would it divert 6.3 million from a historically proud building in our city to a project that's, you've said here, is going to complete on time and on to budget? So who's took the extra 6.3 million? Because you didn't need it because it's completing on time and on budget. So where's the 6.3 million and will we see it in your budget as spare surplus cash? Thank you, Chair.
The decision to transfer the money away from the Fleece Hotel was made by Richard Cook and the former Conservative Member of Parliament, Richard Graham. If you read the council minutes of January 2024, you will see that I raised this issue at the time as Leader of the Opposition and got the confirmation that the money had been moved. It's not a decision that was made by me. You do seem to have a habit of making complaints about my administration not dealing with something, because even though it was a previous administration that actually carried out the issue. So it was a Conservative administration, I think you were elected as a Conservative councillor originally, that moved the money from one pot to another, and they did it with the agreement of the MP and the Department of Local Government. That's the situation. And it's a pity that your Conservative colleagues did that, because we now no longer have that money set aside for the Fleece Hotel, and we're now looking at that issue. Question number 5.
I'll try and keep this question a bit more simple for you, because I think, in my opinion, I think you struggled on understanding the complexities of the last.
Can you ask the question?
Okay. So you've said here that it's a priority of the preservation of Gloucester City to ensure that listed buildings are maintained in the city, and safeguarding its conservation area, its broader planning, and its commitment to the cultural offering, residents as well as tourists, and its significant consequences happen to those who lead to and actions considered harmful and unlawful to the buildings will basically or ultimately result in fines. That said, the City Council owns Grade 1 listed, which is pretty much the highest grading you can get of a listed building. And documentation here from Historic England says that the condition of the Fleece Hotel is a very, very poor condition. Asset number 1245447, number 19 Westgate Street. And it's in decay. There's been a solution agreed, but it's not been implemented. So the question is 6.3 million was taken, diverted by the Conservatives to the forum. You and your administration have given me an answer saying that the money's to budget. You have, not Conservative, recently, last week, the money's to plan, to budget, and it hasn't gone over. Therefore, under your calculations and your written statement to me, you're saying there's 6.3 million available because it's on budget. Will you use the 6.3 million to safeguard and preserve our dilapidated, poorly maintained council assets, which is an embarrassment to this city, the way it's been looked after? It's absolutely shocking. It's really appalling. So can you transfer that 6.3 million and do what this council's meant to do? Thank you so much, Chair, for your fantastic answers.
Let's get this straight. The Fleece Hotel was owned by the Regional Development Agency for many years, and they did absolutely nothing to restore the Fleece Hotel. It was taken over as part of a job lot of land transactions when the RDA was closed, so it became ownership of the City Council. 4 years ago, I remember watching a video of Councillor Melvin and Paul James over the moon that the project to restore and do work on the Fleece Hotel was going to happen, and it never did. And I did challenge it in opposition and challenge them why they had appointed Dowdeswell, who hadn't progressed the project. Can I make it quite clear that the works inside the Fleece Hotel have been to strip out all the modern additions, the hotel rooms and stuff like that. New roofing has been put on there and on salt barns, and a whole load of other remedial work's been done to make the structure safe and sound and watertight, so that when somebody gets around to wanting to move the project forward, they have got a ready-made building to do the work. But you need to understand the Fleece Hotel is negative equity, and to do it. That's why I'm so disappointed the reckless decision of the Conservative Council to transfer the money out of the Fleece Hotel project. And I'm ashamed that the Conservatives did that. And I'm sure you are as well. And criticism of this administration, who's now working with potential partners to see if we can progress the Fleece Hotel restoration. We've all been round, we had a good look at the buildings, we know it's safe, we know it's sound, and picking up probably reports that are a few years old and quoting out of them isn't necessarily appropriate. But the building is sound, and there's been people carrying out remedial works. When I went in there with my cabinet colleagues, there were people working on the building at the time. So what we need to do is progress the project. By the way, 6.3 million, some of that money was transferred to the university campus. And we know the university campus is overspending and having difficulty completing the project financially. But these are there's two major regeneration projects which will be completed this year, started by the Conservatives and supported by us. And there's a third one that we need to deal with, which is the Fleece Hotel. That was 15 minutes. I'm going to give you until 6:25, and then I'm going to close the questions down. Councillor Patel.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for your answers to my questions. Just going back to question 6, with regard to the staff headcount. It's good to see that there's almost a 3% increase in staff, which probably equates to about 7 or 8 officers. Do you know where these officers have been positioned, which teams or departments?
I don't, but I can get that information for you. But if you look at the first quarter financial report, it was commented at the time that some portfolios were showing savings because of staff vacancies. And the question was asked, are we deliberately keeping those staff vacancies there to save money? But we didn't, we recruited to them. I can tell you by email where exactly those particular heads are, but we don't keep staff vacancies for the sake of it just to save money. We make sure we have enough people and the people that we need. So that's the reason why we've had an 8 increase from the May last year until now.
Question 7, Sarge.
Thank you very much. Question 7. Yes, the 3G contract. Why was the 3G contract terminated? And what is the time frame for recruitment of new internal enforcement officers? Bearing in mind it's been nearly 4 months now since that contract ended. Surprising to see that the contract ended just when the last 3 months before the contract ended, 3GS were performing very successfully, having caught, I haven't got the exact number, I haven't added up the figures, but it was almost £71,000 worth of fines that were issued. And in July was the highest ever in that last year, 391 fines for fly tipping. As a result of this contract terminated by 3GS, there may be a correlation with why we're seeing an increase in litter and rubbish in our streets. Just a bit of background, I received an email recently from a resident, hence my question.
You've asked the question, why was it terminated? Seb, can you?
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and thank you for the question. The 3GS contract was cost neutral to the council in terms of we didn't get any income from it, but they took the income from any fines issued, and that was used to run the service. We are now looking at bringing it in-house, which will enhance the service in a number of ways, particularly having staff in Gloucester City Council uniform so they can engage with the community They can do things like they can go into schools and do education programs, and you couldn't do that with 3GS. It will inevitably cost a little more to employ these 2 enforcement officers, but also when you actually have it up and running, we'll be using sophisticated IT equipment to enhance the service and enforce it better. And also there were difficulties in recruiting for these 2 officer positions, but we are confident that it will be up and running soon and it will be an enhanced service for Gloucester.
Number 8.
Thank you very much. My constituent will be very pleased to hear that. Number 8, with regard to missed waste collections between Christmas and New Year, will the residents have to put up with the same problem again next Christmas? You're saying that Ubico are fully staffed, but I don't think they are, because New Year we were supposed to have trees pruned on Conduit Street where I live, and it didn't get done. For the 3rd time, it didn't get done because they had to pull staff from grounds maintenance to collect waste and recycling across the city. It was an absolute mess, and also the roads were covered in litter, which were flying out of the recycling boxes. And even worse is that the council website doesn't even get updated, so residents don't have a clue what they're supposed to do with their recycling, and it just sits there for an extra couple of days. It's an absolute shambles, and it needs sorting out. Can someone get a grip, please? Thank you.
I thought the Christmas collections were fine. It was perfectly okay in the Westgate ward where I live, and I had no complaints from any resident in Kingsholm and Wotton. But there you are.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I'd echo your comments. There were certainly some issues. I mean, I think the main issue with recycling at Christmas time is the sheer volume that we have to deal with nowadays. Christmas has increased the amount of packaging, for example, that all the presents come in. And, anyone with a family will know that a lot of the kids' toys are wrapped in a lot of cardboard. I want to pay tribute to the Ubico staff who worked incredibly hard over Christmas to catch up and try to get this waste and recycling as extra volume collected on time, and they did the best they could. I felt that the council website was fine. It was updated. You may have a different experience of that. I also saw lots of regular updates on social media, which I took care to share every day to inform my residents and the residents of Gloucester about what was going on. But I think, we could look at employing extra staff, but it would only ever be seasonal. You can't anticipate anymore the sheer volume of recycling that you're going to get at Christmas. But I think also it needs to be said that it's great that we get the income from that we get the recycling and we make money from it. And, if it takes a bit extra to collect it, it's worth doing because it will go to support the services that we have to deliver.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Andrew.
The website wasn't updated. I had to email the corporate director, and then she apologised. Thank you very much. And Christmas is not a phenomenon. It happens every year. Thank you.
Andrew, we've run out of time, but if you've got one question and if you want to ask supplementaries in writing for the other ones, then we'll take them.
All this time, and we've got a call. How long? 1 minute.
Well, I'm sorry, your colleagues took up a lot of time asking supplementaries as well. Which one do you want to use?
I don't know where to begin. So there are like 3 or 4 questions. What would have been helpful and perhaps a little bit more courteous would have, if you introducing your colleagues, your new colleagues, so we don't know. That's not my one question. My one question, I'll tell you the first one on the list. I did come into town on New Year's Eve, and I was absolutely disappointed to see so many rough sleepers during the day. There were some doorways where there were 3 people in, 2 people in, and I don't understand the answer. I think it's complacent. I think it's not taking into account the seriousness of the issue. Sorry, but that's how I felt. I was coming into town, obviously. Just very quickly, I was coming into town to celebrate.
And Andrew, can you ask the question?
belong to a council which
Andrew, can you ask the question? Stop making a statement of
So the question is, what more can we do to assess the number of people who are sleeping rough in the daytime, rather than just assuming because they're here, they've got to be part of the same cohort who sleep rough at night? The two don't follow. People say that as a...
Andrew, you've asked your question. Let her answer
I'm
it.
sure that my questions are dealt with first. We're doing it on some sort of rota basis. This really is fast.
No, it's fine. Can you just behave yourself? You're a well-experienced councillor. With the greatest respect, greatest respect, you've asked your question. Let the cabinet member respond.
Respect, I don't need any lectures from you, Mr. Hilton. I do know how to chair meetings, and I do know what the word expressions and leniency means. Apparently don't.
Come on.
This council getting like a Stalin ship. It's disgusting.
Come on.
Bullying.
This is a bully council.
It's not
Just leave there. There is no democracy in this council.
You did the
No
same with
democracy.
Red.
No democracy.
The leader did the same with Red a few weeks ago, and he's doing it again.
Can somebody?
Homeless people turn off that microphone.
Yeah.
100% increase in this council in the last year. You can't give me a question about people sleeping rough on our streets. Shame on you, Jeremy. Shame on you. Shame on you.
Switch that.
It's unfortunate that Councillor Gravels has left the chamber before I can respond to him. But I will, for the benefit of this cabinet, respond anyway, because it is a very complex situation. I, for one, who live actually in Westgate, probably about 50 yards from the doorways that Councillor Gravels is talking about, can see exactly what's happening in our city. Interestingly, the dynamics is that the rough sleepers at night, many of them, in fact, pretty much all of them, do have a place to sleep. What happens is that there is a cohort of individuals who come into the city centre at probably about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. They will set up their beds in the doorways to then have a day being on the streets. There is a peer group, they know each other, there's a lot of loyalty amongst the people. I know because I speak with them daily. I'm doing voluntary outreach myself to one particular gentleman, another lady who's currently in Cheltenham Hospital because she's got cirrhosis of the liver because of her alcoholism. There is a lot of complexity with this issue. And it's not that the City Council isn't doing anything. And I just want to add that one of Councillor Gravels' questions was whether we are being too lenient. That is certainly not the case. What we are trying to do is engage with people. We're trying to outreach people. We're trying to work with our partners. We're trying to work with P3. We're trying to work with the Nelson Trust. We're trying to work with Gloucester City Mission, the Salvation Army. And what we're trying to do is come together in a personal-centred approach with each of the individuals that are on our streets and able to offer them the tools and resources to be able to get back onto some sense of living. I just feel that you'll see later in the cabinet there is actually a pilot project that's also going to be coming up from the 1st of April, and I think this again will contribute to then us doing more to the individuals that Councillor Gravels is talking about. I think that's enough said for now because I've gone on a bit as well, but I hope that's made it very clear to this cabinet that actually we are doing what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you for that response. Pity the questioner didn't stay to listen to you. Item 7 is the corporate plan. This is the major document that I'll be presenting. This is the strategy for the council over the next few years. It's based on the manifesto of my group, Putting the Heart Back into Gloucester. and look at the work streams that we need to achieve to deliver on that manifesto. It's also based on work that the officers identified that needs to be done, and that was in train maybe. Things like completing the forum is a project that started beforehand, one that had all party support as well. So we're progressing those things. It's been out to consultation. Not a great number of people responded, 60, but I understand that's very similar to previous consultations. I always think that you're more likely to get consultation if you put something so radical in there that nobody wants you to do it. It was quite clearly 60% of the people thought what we were proposing was sound. We've also had some comments and ideas from the Labour group, which I thank them for doing. There's also from the Police and Crime Commissioner as well. We didn't get any comments on the draft corporate plan, which was out for 6 weeks from either the Independent or the Conservative group. The ideas in this plan are to strengthen civic pride, to build more affordable homes, to deliver a zero carbon council, to improve biodiversity in our parks, transform our council service, making them better, deliver regeneration and make the city an exciting and attractive place to live and visit. We have redrafted the corporate plan to hopefully take in on board most of the things that are being asked us to do. We've not introduced any direct new policy, which is something that we might not agree with. But to note that this corporate plan as it stands has got probably 20 more actions than the previous corporate plan, which was approved after the last set of elections. So this will now go through to full council, and I hope that we can get the corporate plan forward, because what will happen then is that the managing director and the staff will then look at the work streams that they need to deliver and look at whether they can do some of those work streams within the resources we've already got, or whether we need to move staff around to deliver some projects. And also we'll be looking at whether we need to call on additional financial resources. But we'll find that out at the point when we've done more work on it. But the idea is to set in train the work plan of this council to 2028 and beyond. We know there's issues related to possible local government reorganisation. This plan is blind to that. This is about delivering our plan and work streams, and it's important that as a council we continue to progress the projects which will make Gloucester a much better place to live, work and to visit. Has anybody else got any comments to make?
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. I just want to sort of endorse everything Jeremy's just said there. It's a long road from taking the bare bones of a manifesto, to the streets and the doorsteps, to letting that evolve into a strategic document that can give this council a vision for the future. And then, of course, the next stage is to try and get buy-in from the other groups as well. And I pay tribute to the Labour group, who did put in a lot of work themselves into coming up with some ideas that some of what we were able to add into the plan. Also, would like to thank the officers who have done a sterling job in producing the document that we have before us. I think it captures the spirit of what we campaigned for in the election, and I think it gives a broad vision for the city as a whole. Interesting to see, looking at the feedback that we've got from the consultation, and it seems that most people are broadly supportive of most of the items on the plan. So very happy to support this. I hope others can buy into it too. And I think it gives a good broad support for to build a prosperous and more vibrant city over the next 3.5 years or so. So happy to support it.
But can I also point out that there's a lot of actions that this council's taken, which is business as usual, and therefore, the corporate plan doesn't put in business as usual, because it's about new actions and improvements in services and things like that. So don't assume that certain things are not being done because it's not listed in the corporate plan. They will be done, and they might be in service plans as well. But there's a lot of issues that this council does, which is business as usual. You'll be pleased, Terry, that the cost of living plan has been mentioned in the corporate plan, and I think we might have some good further announcements which you'll be happy with in the near future. So are we happy to support that and agree it? Thank you. Financial monitoring report. That's you, Declan. I did mention the additional money we've been spending on our built assets in Gloucester. Is one of the reasons why there's a slight overspend in the projections.
Yeah, just bear with me. I was trying to find my documents here. Right. Okay. Well, there's not much to say about this. It's the Q2 financial plan, and it is the swings and roundabouts, unfortunately. The bottom line is that we are forecasting a reduction in the general fund of 262,000 by the end of the year. We have had some budget pressures that have arisen in the second quarter. As Jeremy has already mentioned, we've had to spend a hell of a lot on cost of surveys, repairs and maintenance, emergency work in various properties that the council owns throughout the city. That wasn't covered in the budget, and that's hit us quite hard. I think the number 293,000 was mentioned by Jeremy earlier on. Other issues we've had is housing subsidy, which is unfortunately it's outside our control, but it's to do with the revenue and the benefits that this council administers. Sometimes we can gain from it, sometimes we can't, but effectively we manage 130 million of housing subsidy and benefit payments, and the smallest percentage change can have a significant impact on the final outturn. So in the case of the second quarter report, it's got worse by over 400,000, and there's nothing we can do about that. Sometimes it works in our favour, sometimes it doesn't. In planning, it's worth mentioning, we still are suffering from a reduction in planning income, which is disappointing. We did adjust the budget, as I understand it, this year was adjusted to reflect that, but we're going to have to adjust it again because unfortunately planning income and planning applications are down on what they have been in previous years. With regards to culture and leisure, there's a £45,000 adverse variance, mostly due to the loss of the Tall Ships Festival, which has been reported previously. It's just one of the things, unfortunately, we had to take that one on the chin. However, if you look at the corporate and funding summary table, you will see there are some positives there. We've managed to get higher interest on our investments, because we had previously forecast interest rates would drop and they didn't. So there was 100,000 there. The slight delay to the forum means that we can capitalise interest costs longer, so that gives us a gain of 350. Generation fund income was stronger by 100,000, and the business rate pool relief was 50,000. So that's helped mitigate some of the pressures above, but it still remains, touch and go. The bottom line is we have to be careful in how we manage our resources, and it's something we can't afford to take our eye off the ball on. So effectively, that's our Q2 finance report, which I think we just have to note.
I think we also ought to note that this is the performance based on the previous administration's budget, which was set in February. So we're working on their budget rather than our budget, and I think our finance officers have looked at where there's some overspending and tried to adjust the new budget proposals that have gone out to publication in the last couple of days. So they should be adjusted in order to compensate and make sure that for the next year the budget is more an accurate projection than possibly the last one was. But other than that, shall we note the report? Yeah. Item number 9, City Centre Engagement Pilot Project. Again, it was a pity that some people haven't stayed to listen to you, Rebecca, but you've really good imaginative report that's coming forward. Would you like to introduce it?
Yeah, definitely. So thank you to the officers who have we've worked collaboratively with regards to this pilot project. 2 years, £200,000. It's about engaging. It's about improving instances of street drinking in the city centre and reducing antisocial behaviour. But it's also about improving outcomes for those individuals with complex needs that we know frequent the city centre. There is a small cohort of them, and we have found that they are problematic, and it causes problems not just for themselves, but for businesses and for general visitors coming. We're hearing about it, and yet, they need help, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm absolutely extremely excited about this project. It's exactly what the Gloucester City Centre needs, and it really does demonstrate also our dedication to working with partners to address the priorities of crime and safety. It is also important to stress that this is not withdrawing funding from the community protection officers that are already visible in the city centre. This is in addition to that, and we hope that they will work closely together. It is vital that we engage positively with the most vulnerable in our communities, and this project exactly is what we set out to achieve. And I'm really confident that it will be a success. It's 2 years. It'll give us time to really monitor it on a monthly basis. It'll probably take 4 to 6 months before we actually see any actual progress, because it needs time for the recruitment, but not just that, it needs time to really liaise with these people, to gain their trust. So the engagement officers really need to get that relationship building with these individuals. But I'm actually really confident that it will be a success. So look forward to it, and look forward to monitoring it, and we'll go from there, see what it does. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Just say that I'm really pleased to see this report going forward. I'm pleased to see that the Red Jackets will continue to be funded by ourselves, the Police and Crime Commissioner and the Gloucester BID. So they'll be doing the normal sort of security officers type role. But this is much more engaging, detailed engagement officers who will sit on top of that. So there'll be two of them trying to help resolve the problems of people who are drinking in the streets and other problems like that. And hopefully, after a few months, we'll see some improvement in the situation. It's obviously an experiment, so we can't be sure how successful it will be. But if it is successful, then it's something we can pass on to maybe other local authorities who are in the same situation as us, and let them know how we've achieved it. But it's a 2-year experiment, and we found the funding to do that. And obviously, if it's a great success, we'll have to look at how we continue the funding. But I'm pleased to support the report. Cabinet happy? Yeah. Caroline, this is you. You've been waiting.
Okay.
Item 10, Tourism Destination Marketing Report.
Right, so the officers have prepared a really comprehensive report about the progress that we've made against the objectives for our Destination Marketing Service Plan for 2024 and onwards. These are objectives that were agreed by the previous Cabinet in December 2023. I'll try and keep it fairly brief and just call out the headlines from the report. So first of all, a bit of background about the service. So tourism and destination marketing are responsible for promoting Gloucester as a great place to visit, live and work. And as well as managing Visit Gloucester, which is the website and the social media channels that promote our campaigns and our visitor economy businesses, they also lead on marketing for our council-run festival and events team. So that includes events like Gloucester Goes Retro, Tall Ships, Bright Nights, and also our council-run cultural venues and their programmes, so Gloucester Guildhall, Museum of Gloucester, Blackfriars Priory. So, like I said, I'll call out some of the headline updates, starting with visitor economy. So For the last year, our visitor spending and visitor economy business turnover, we've got data from the Southwest Research Company, but actually this is an annual report that we get yearly in arrears. So the latest figures we have are for 2023. But the headlines from this report were that we've recorded 246 million of total visitor-related spend in the city. And to break that down, about a third of that was in the shopping category and 31% was on hospitality. We've also recorded 310 million total business turnover supported. Gloucester actually attracted the second highest number of day visits after the Cotswolds. 20% of all the day trips in the county were to Gloucester. We also had the third highest number of domestic staying visits after the Cotswolds and Cheltenham, and we were fourth for overseas staying visits. The most popular accommodation choice for staying visits was with family and friends. So we hope that if we grow other types of overnight accommodation in the city, such as the new Hotel Indigo that's going to be opening at the Forum, this can help to increase our visitor economy turnover in the coming years. And just to add that 5% of all employment in Gloucester is in the visitor economy sector. So some good news there. The report goes on as well to provide information on some of the events that they've promoted over the last year, and that includes Gloucester Believes, Bright Nights, Gloucester Goes Retro, Tall Ships, History Festival. There's plenty more as well, and there's lots of information there as to how they've as to what they've recorded for each of those promotion campaigns. It also talks about the promotion work that we've already started for some of our upcoming events. So we've got Moomins 80 this year. Now, Gloucester Guildhall is just one of 4 cultural venues in the whole of the UK that's been chosen to host the celebrations for the 80th anniversary of the release of the first Moomin story, if anybody can remember those. The culture team are curating a programme of activity across Guildhall, the museum, Gloucester Docks and King's Square. We've already had some press coverage on this. There was a feature run in The Guardian, and we'll have a full promotional campaign rolling out starting in February. Another big one coming up is Lions at Large. So Visit Gloucester and Visit Cheltenham are the official tourism partners for this. And what it is it's a trail of lion sculptures, temporary sculptures, that we placed around the city from July until September. And the idea is that it will attract visitors to the city and to Cheltenham, increase footfall, and it's also to raise money for the Big Space Cancer Appeal, which is supported by Cheltenham and Gloucester Hospitals charity. There'll be giant lions around the city centre, which will be painted by local artists, and there will be some smaller ones in more specific locations as well that will be designed by local schools. We've got a section as well about the Always On activity, and this is the channels that we use to put out regular promotional material about the city. So just some brief headlines around this. We've got our subscriber count for the business newsletter grew by 9%, not a huge increase, but an increase all the same. And we've been working on growing the LinkedIn profile so that we can directly share news and content with businesses. The mailing list that people subscribe to for our newsletters for Gloucester tourism or for event information has grown by 225% from February 23 to October 24. So this is a big increase. We're aiming for another 1,500 subscribers by the end of this year. Visit Gloucester website was due to be rebuilt in 2024. We couldn't complete all of that work because there were capacity pressures on the team for other events, such as helping out with the Tall Ships Festival, creating a website, managing the comms for that. So some of that work had to be put on hold. They have, though, implemented some changes. So we've implemented a new method for businesses to sign up, and we've made improvements to event submission forms so that now we have more events being advertised on the website than we ever have before. Social media, so our target number of followers for the year ending March 25 was 54,000, but we'd already surpassed that by Q1. and the number stood at about 60,000 by the end of Q2. So our reach and our number of clicks and engagements and emojis or whatever is going up year on year. And then finally, in summer 24, Visit Gloucester obtained £12 million in funding from Visit England, Historic England, to look into replacing all of our pedestrian wayfinding in the city centre. We've contracted the same people who are doing the cycle spine wayfinding to do the study. That study's now been completed, and we have a report with recommendations on the route hierarchy and the sign placement. The study report is in the appendix if you want to look at the pictures. The next steps will be to engage with our planning team and consult with stakeholders and the public, and we'll be seeking funding for that next phase. So the recommendation for this report is just to note the progress that's been made and let us know if you're happy with the report.
Thank you, Caroline. I think the one thing that I find interesting and in agreement with is the comment on paragraph 7.3 that we refer to Gloucester Bus Station as Gloucester Bus Station and not the transport hub, because nobody knows what the transport hub is. The transport hub could be the three facilities there. That's the railway station, the bus station, and of course the car park will open shortly in the spring. I think that's a sensible thing. I could never understand why it was called the transport. I've always called it the bus station. And anybody walking around, they won't ask for the transport hub, is they? Where's the Gloucester Bus Station? I want to go home. So, use a proper, accurate name for something so which everybody understands what it is, and people that will even understand it when they type it in their own language as well. It'll come up on Google bus station and they'll know what to ask for. But other than that, I think it's a good report. Are you happy to accept the recommendations? Yeah. And then we've got item 11, which is the festivals and events plan and report back. That I understand, much of that you mentioned it in your report for the first one, so there's no need to go over all the actions of festivals, because I think you've mentioned them in the cultural aspect of it. But is there anything else you want to say on this before we
Yes,
accept
I have prepared a few words, which I will say. So this is a review of the festival events that took place in 2024 and an overview of what we've got planned for 25 to 26. So as a headline, over the last year, the team at the council have directly organised 12 events, which includes 5 civic events, and they oversaw permissions for a further 62 external events and 5 filming events. So for external events, they're responsible for issuing funding programmes, for monitoring progress of the delivery, for assessing applications and for organising funding agreements. So some of the events of 2024, I won't go into all of them or ones that I've already talked about too much, but the team delivered the Tall Ships Festival in-house for the first time. Now, this was a huge endeavour on a very short time scale, and there is a separate report included in the appendix, which gives a detailed review of that event and the outcomes and the feedback and so on. In many ways, the event was successful. It sold over 17,000 tickets. We platformed some local and emerging artists, and feedback on people who attended the event itself was generally quite positive. Also important to note that it contributed an estimated economic impact of an additional 337,000 to the local economy just over that weekend. Another big positive. However, it is clear that the format of the event as a closed festival site with a heavy reliance on ticket income, trying to cover the increasingly high costs of putting on an event of this scale, and the short lead time that the team had to generate sponsorship income is not a format that we would want to continue with. So our recommendations from this report are that firstly, we explore a new format for this event. in future that's more financially sustainable. As you know, we're planning an event for the 200th anniversary of the docks in 2027. This will be a very different format to previous tall ships, and we'll be taking the things that people have enjoyed from the tall ships festivals over the last 20 years, but we'll reimagine them and curate a different programme. And hopefully this will give us a template that we can use for future events. And the second recommendation from that report was that any events of this size are given at least 2 years preparation time, so that there's sufficient time to obtain the required amount of fundraising, to get the production and communication put in place to make it a proper success. So that's the detail on tall ships. Other than that, we had the usual kind of events. We had the annual civic service, Armed Forces Day. We had D-Day 80 ceremonies, including the lighting of the beacon at Robinswood Hill. Gloucester Goes Retro, which also won Event of the Year in the Believe in Gloucester Awards. We had Gloucester Day, which is organised by our town crier, Alan Myatt. We had Remembrance Day and Bright Nights, which includes the lantern procession and the lighting of the Christmas tree. There are also many external events that we supported, and some of those include the Allotment Gallery at Fairshares Allotments, the Matson Music and Food Festival, Barton and Treadworth Cultural Fair, Gloucester Big Draw in King's Square, Gloucester Pride, Peaceophobia, Philippine British Friendship Day. So lots and lots of cultural events. And as we turn now to looking ahead at the festival and events programme for 25 to 26, it's important, first of all, to be aware of the changes to how our funding for festivals and events is awarded. So in March not this year, because we've moved on a year, in March last year, Gloucester Culture Trust were successful in bidding for place partnership funding called Together Gloucester. The funding scheme puts citizens at the centre of decision-making about our cultural events so that they reflect what local people want, and it makes sure that they represent Gloucester's identity. This scheme's run by GCT, Gloucester Culture Trust, in collaboration with our other partners. And to meet the obligations of this funding, the council had to put in the bulk of the financial match from our festivals and events budget, and that equates to about 150k per year over 3 years. So what this means is that any grants or major events that we support have to align with the ethos of Together Gloucester now, and they have to go through a new grant funding process. And this process includes a citizens panel, which ensures that the community are involved in shaping and contributing our festivals and events activity, and it provides more opportunities for local artists as well. So for this reason, the in-house team will, going forward, be less involved in the direct delivery of new events, but they'll be more involved in commissioning and funding community events. They'll be delivering the appropriate due diligence and developing relationships and networks across the city, and these are all key outcomes of the Together Gloucester funding. So the window for funding applications ran from 8th of November till the 10th of January. So the full events calendar for the next year will be known once applications have all been reviewed and the funding has been awarded. In the meantime, Appendix B in the pack shows details of the events that have been commissioned so far, and that includes animation of King's Square and the Bright Nights. They're both embedded into Together Gloucester already. We've got some proposed dates for the annual civic calendar, which currently includes VE Day 80, Armed Forces Day, Remembrance Sunday, Christmas Lights Switch On, and we're also considering the appropriate timing and format of a COVID remembrance event so we can officially launch the COVID memorial that was sited in Gloucester Park last year. The ask of Cabinet today is to confirm you're happy with the write-up of the review and the update on Together Gloucester, recognising the way that festivals and events will be funded in future, and to endorse the plans for 25 to 26, including the tall ships recommendations.
Okay, are we happy to accept the recommendation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Then we get to item 12, which has been withdrawn. My reasons for that is in my answer to Councillor Gravel's last question. So if the press want to know, that's the reason. We'll be doing more work on it, and we'll bring the report back to Cabinet at a later point in time. But it's based on the discussions that took place at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. We thought we need to do further work on it. Okay, so that's the end of the meeting. It's 7 o'clock. Thank you for turning up.